Welcome in, everybody, to this Kansas City Chiefs post-game live stream presented by Bleacher Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, joined by my co-host, Joey Segura. The Kansas City Chiefs just dropped this game in Denver by a final score of 24-9. For the first time since Barack Obama was president, the Chiefs lost to the Denver Broncos. Very weird game. I know Joey's got a ton of thoughts about it, but what are your initial reactions to this horrible loss on the road?
So the first reaction is, and I think you and I over these streams, we've kind of preached a consistent take, and that's that the wide receiver core was hopefully going to develop more than what it has been recently, and that it's going to grow. Today really made me disagree with that notion. Now, I would say I really do think there needs to be something done to try to go out and get somebody. And I think getting Mecole Hardman was a decent start. I think he's comfortable with the offense, so I like that. Okay. And we'll talk about his muffed punt later. But I just look at this team right now, and these guys aren't making plays. They're just not. You can't rely on a 34-year-old Travis Kelce anymore to be the guy on every single possession. He can't do that. His body can't take that anymore. And also, just on that take, I mean, what is Mahomes supposed to do? I mean, he was holding on to the ball for a long time, and he's doing that because nobody's open. There's nothing there. And by the time that the plays play out and everything's there, normally what is his best asset, which is his improvisation ability, he can't do it anymore because nobody's open. And so he gets sacked. So right now, the receivers aren't there, and you can't really expect Patrick Mahomes, who's battling the flu, to do much more than what he did today. The offensive line wasn't as good as it has been in recent weeks either, but man, this wide receiver core is the root cause of this loss today. They weren't able to get open, and therefore we couldn't make any plays, and it was extremely frustrating to watch. And I would say this was the worst game, and you kind of said it before we went live. To me, this is the worst game I've seen us play since the Tennessee game in the AFC Championship 2021 or 22.
Do you mean the game that we played in Nashville?
In Nashville.
Mahomes didn't throw a touchdown?
Yeah, where Mahomes got a concussion and we did not score. Yeah, we got 3 points, I think.
This game was easily one of the worst Chiefs games I've seen with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. I think I saw something that Mahomes was unbeaten, like 25-0 against teams that had a losing record. Now he's 25-1. This was so tough to watch because the wide receivers, like you alluded to, they can't get open. And it's really bad because this Denver Broncos defense is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They've got good secondary pieces with like Pat Surtain, but still, your wide receivers cannot get open. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a veteran wide receiver in the NFL. Mahomes is still screaming at him to come back to the football.
It's crazy.
What are we doing? Sky Moore can't catch the football. Rasheed Rice is still having problems with drops. Like you said, you can't rely on Travis Kelce to do everything for you offensively because you're just going to double team him. And guess what? He is aging, and his body can't take the same workload that we're used to seeing. So somebody's got to step up. A guy that I just randomly thought about, where's Kadarius Toney been? We thought Kadarius Toney could be a number one wide receiver. This guy's not even on the football field. Mecole Hardman has flashes of, really good play, and then he makes plays that just make me scream out and saying, why are you even in the National Football League? Running backwards, not being able to, field punts, which we will talk about. It's just so maddening that this wide receiver core is bad on so many levels. And it begs the question, should the Chiefs go out and do something to correct this issue? The problem is, at this point in the season, we're 8 weeks in. Who are you going to trade for? Who are you going to get in free agency or pick up off the street that's going to be any better than any current wide receiver that you have on this roster? I don't know if there is a guy. And so for you guys in the comments section, let us know who you think the Chiefs should try to go out and get if there is a wide receiver that's even worth getting. I know that Justin Ross has gotten in some legal trouble, so his future with the team is undetermined. But I don't really know of anybody that would make sense to go out and get, because I know Mike Evans is a name that's very popular, like, the Chiefs should trade for him. They're not giving up a major draft asset to go get a guy who is going to want to get paid, and he's an aging wide receiver. So my question is, what wide receiver makes sense on this team currently? We're 8 weeks in the season. Unfortunately, I think that Brett Veach is a little just too late. He's just too late.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're in a really tough spot here. I think he was banking on Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney taking a leap, and that just didn't happen. I just think the rough reality that we might have to look at and face, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer here, is just that it is too late and that this is going to be something you have to address in the offseason. And I do think he will address it in the offseason. We've seen him be aggressive and tried. I mean, he tried to go out and get A.J. Brown before the Eagles outbid us, and he tried to convince DeAndre Hopkins, who wound up choosing the money over it. But yeah, right now it's really tough. I keep seeing the comment up here. I do agree with this. I think Mike Evans could be a guy that you could potentially go out and get from the Buccaneers. I'm not sure how realistic that is, but I think that's one that is an avenue that you could pursue. But man, that was just rough to watch. And not to change the subject off the wide receivers. One of the comments on here, Terrell, he was saying, run the ball. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree, run the football. And I don't mean to yell here, but here's the deal. On that, not the last drive from Mahomes through the pick, but the one before that. It's 3rd and 2. Isaiah Pacheco was getting 5 yards a carry. He wasn't getting like 2 yards or 3 yards. He was getting yards. Run the ball if you're going to go for it on 4th down anyway. Don't like that's what frustrates me with this offense right now is I feel like we're clearly not getting the receivers open and the receivers can't do anything. So run the football more, create the space, because on that last drive, it was just Mahomes throws and it killed us. So the play calling to me was very, very questionable. I didn't like it. I'm going to be blunt there.
It wasn't just questionable. It was just bad. The play calling was bad. Like that 3rd and 2 play you talked about, then it was 4th and 2. And the Chiefs did this a couple times today when they were in a short yardage situation on a down that they needed to pick up a 1st down, and they tried going deep. That play on 4th and 2, they tried going to the end zone with Sky Moore. Sky Moore, like the wide receiver he's been since he's been on the Chiefs, he couldn't catch the football. Just lost it. Like at this point, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Why are you going for an end zone shot with Sky Moore, a guy that I would not trust with the football? Why are you targeting him in that moment? And you need 2 yards. You're telling me that you couldn't have Pacheco line up in the backfield and get a running head start and take the ball and get 2 yards? Like, the play calling was so bad in this game, whether it was Matt Nagy, whether it was Andy Reid, the play calling wasn't good enough. And the predictability, they talked about it on the broadcast. This offense in the red zone is so predictable early on in the game. Rashee Rice caught that, little shovel pass that they do, and he got stuffed right away because they do it all the freaking time. The Chiefs offense has been so predictable this year. I think Mahomes is getting frustrated because his wide receivers can't get open. The play calling's been bad. He's had to hold on to the ball for so long, and then he ends up getting sacked. It's just a recipe for disaster. And on a day where your defense actually gives up the most points that they've given up all season to the Denver Broncos of all teams, it's just so weird that on that very same day, your offense can't even muster a touchdown. 3 field goals. That's all they got.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's frustration at its utmost to me, I would say. And this has been all the issues we've been worried about for the last couple of weeks, really since the season started, is finally coming to a head now. And it came over and it boiled over the top today. I hate some of the red zone play calling. I look at it and like you said, the Sky Moore shovel pass. Why are we doing that? Why? To me, it's never – and they've done this – that's, to me, an Andy Reid special. I mean, I'm sure Nagy was probably the one who made that play call, but this is what we've done with Andy Reid since he's been there, and I hate that. To me, it's trying to get too cute, and it doesn't work half the time. I'd 10 times out of 10 rather have our receivers running an actual route, even though they couldn't seem to get open during those routes, and have the ball in Mahomes' hands to make a play there, or hand it off to your bruising running back in Isaiah Pacheco. To me, either of those options are better than a cute shovel pass to your wide receiver and when he's going sideways and hope he's going to be able to go forward. And also, my other pet peeve with the play calling is the check down passes. I believe it was a 3rd down early on. I can't remember 1st quarter or 2nd quarter. It was like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, or maybe it was 2nd down. And we threw it 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Why? To me, I know that play can work if you have Tyreek Hill receiving the ball. I'm sorry, and I love McKinnon as much as the next guy. He is not a game changer that I want the ball in his hands on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and catching the ball 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I just think it's getting too cute, and they try to get too cute. And I just, it's frustrating. I think we need to take our reactions with a little bit of a grain of salt, like we are 6-2, to come a little bit back down to reality. It's very worrisome. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you guys, oh, it's all sunshine and rainbows, because it's not right now. It's not. It's worrisome, and we should be worried. But at the same time, I do trust in this offense to figure it out, at least hopefully enough to get a playoff run going and deep into the playoffs, because at that point, that's what you're looking towards.
Here's the thing. We've seen this offense go from looking very good one week, like last week against the Chargers, to not even being a functional unit the very next week against an opponent that I would argue is significantly worse. And you made a good point off the broadcast that this is the Denver Broncos Super Bowl. You're not going to see them in the playoff race. They're going to be out of this season in the next couple weeks. And so when you're playing up against a team that has dominated you for the better part of the last 7 years, you're going to have a little bit more motivation to win that game. And it was only a matter of time. Eventually, the Broncos were going to prevail. I just think it was very odd in a game that they finally ended up winning. The Chiefs just couldn't get anything going on offense whatsoever. And, with the Chiefs in the past, they've had games where, they look really bad in the first quarter and the second quarter, but they figure it out in the third quarter, or they make some miraculous drive in the fourth quarter to just somehow pull a victory out of nowhere. But in that game, or today's game, it just wasn't the case. Everything fell apart. The Chiefs couldn't get anything going on offense. The turnovers, still a problem. But kind of like you said, some of the problems that we've been complaining about for the better part of the last 4 or 5 weeks, it really showed in this game. Now, I'm not necessarily on the train of being worried that our season's over. I think that is a foolish logic to have. But I think that when your wide receivers can't get separation, catch the ball, and your quarterback's frustrated with the talent that he has, I do think that is worrisome because, at the end of the day, the guys that we have right now are probably going to be the guys that are on this team when the season's over. But it's hard for me to blame the wide receivers entirely because I think the play calling hasn't helped them out in any way whatsoever. So it's just like there's so much going on with this offense right now, so much confusion. I think obviously the wide receivers are going to have to play better because they've been so inconsistent. But the play calling today especially was really bad.
I'd agree. And, I don't want to make this whole thing a rag on the wide receivers live stream because like I've said in the past, I want to support our guys. I will continue to support these guys till the wheels fall off. But I think in the difference between this year and last year, and somebody did comment, and I agree with it to an extent of, well, we didn't have a clear number one last year. We didn't, but I will say the difference is Juju wasn't an amazing football player. Don't get me wrong. But Juju was a reliable wide receiver that next to Travis Kelce, when Kelce's essentially your number one receiving option at this point, which he should be, Juju was a reliable guy that you could go to get yards. I don't think we have that this year. MVS is certainly not that guy. Kadarius Toney is sure as heck not that guy. Neither is Sky Moore. Rashee Rice, I think, can be that guy someday, and I think he's getting there, but today's not. It's not there yet. And Nico Hardman's not. So, when you look at the Chiefs roster right now, and Patrick Mahomes is a god on the football field, let me say that. But he's playing with all C+, C-level wide receivers. Mecole Hardman is a guy that is in that tier. Kadarius Toney is. Sky Moore is right now. So when you go down the wide receiver list, and the only one I would even consider to put into a decent tier of a wide receiver is Rashee Rice right now. And he's still young. He's going to drop these footballs like he did earlier in the game. He's not going to be able to get open and get into space as much as these veterans will right now. So it's, when you watch the frustration on the football field, you can see it in Patrick Mahomes' face. And it's frustrating for everybody. And I agree the play calling hasn't helped them all that much. But I also bring into question, I don't know how much there is for them to play call with the current wide receiver core that's there because it's just not very good. And they definitely should be better. But, it was a game where we shot ourselves in the foot, and it was just a hard watch. And it was just like a slow burn is essentially to me what it was. And, they're going to bounce back. The only real takeaway that I can hope for, in a positive way is that this is going to fire them up for Germany next week, taking on Tyreek Hill. That's about the only one.
I mean, like I said earlier, just the offense didn't break through. We kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and they just continued to, like you said, shoot themselves in the foot. The Chiefs had 4 turnovers in this game. MVS fumbled the ball after he caught the ball. Mahomes threw an interception, a really bad interception. Mahomes fumbled the ball, and Mecole Hardman muffed the punt. So the turnovers just continue to compound, and it's not easy to beat a divisional opponent on the road to begin with. But when you're giving them a short field and you're giving them the ball back 4 times, you're not going to win. The Chiefs have gotten so, I don't want to say lucky, but so fortunate that the turnovers that they make, at least that they have in weeks prior, haven't come back to hurt them. The turnovers were a problem in this game, and it was one of the main factors in why you lost. You have to play a clean game of football, and the Chiefs did not do that offensively. I don't want to make this stream entirely about the offense because the defense could have played better, but when your offense puts up 9 points and you can't move the ball in the red zone, I think that is the major cause for concern for this team right now, especially because the Chiefs defense has been rock solid all year long. Even 24 points to the Denver Broncos on the road, I would clarify that as a success.
With that too, a lot of the turnovers gave Denver the ball right in great field positioning. So the defense really didn't have good positioning to work with either in that regard as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like the Chiefs offense gave Denver's offense like a short field, I would say half the time. And one interesting stat, I think, why can't I remember his name on the broadcast? Calling 2 games.
Kevin Harlan.
Kevin Harlan, KUJ school alum. He was talking about how in the second half until the 4th quarter, Mahomes had the ball for 1 drive and had 7 plays. That's not good enough. And yeah, like I obviously think that the offense probably wouldn't have done anything with the ball in their hands, but you never know. Maybe they could have got something going. But yeah, the offense just did not have a clear shot in the second half of, marching down the field and scoring. And when they did have the ball in their hands, they were moving the ball, and then they would get in those short yardage situations, and they would call up like a 20-yard pass downfield that would ended up not getting completed. So I'm not super thrilled with the offense, but I do think that we kind of have to hold out hope because that's all we have at this point. The Chiefs aren't acquiring a wide receiver. They're not going to do that. What we have right now on this team is probably what we're going to have when the season's over. So we better hope they figure it out. We better hope that they play more consistent football because I don't think there's a savior that's coming. It's going to have to be Patrick Mahomes figuring out which of the wide receivers can step up and give him something on a game-to-game basis. But I guess my last point with the wide receivers, I'm really surprised with the lack of production from Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, I genuinely thought could be our number 1 wide receiver, and he has maybe been as useful as Sky Moore has been. And Sky Moore has been a negative to this team.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think it was very shocking, probably is the right term. I mean, normally it's not something, there's not many things in this league that really blow you away, and this is just one of them. It confuses me why he hasn't been able to get into this offense more. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. Obviously, I'm not behind the team walls. I'm not in the locker room, so I don't know. But it is worrisome to see. And I'd also like to kind of make a point here, and I've said it the last couple of weeks too. And I'm not blaming him entirely when I say this, and I know some Chiefs fans might not like to hear it. Patrick Mahomes has picked a lot of these wide receiver weapons that we have. Patrick Mahomes, and I understand he's unhappy now, and rightfully so. They're not good right now. But Brett Veach has Mahomes heavily involved in the draft process. Mahomes worked out with all the wide receivers in this year's draft, basically, all the major ones, Quentin Johnson, and obviously Rashee Rice too. And Mahomes reports back who he likes. That's why Clyde Edwards-Helaire's on this team. That's a big reason why Sky Moore's on this team. That's a big reason why Rashee Rice is on this team. Granted, I do think Rashee Rice is going to be a very good wide receiver. But I think we also need to kind of take that into consideration as well a little bit is yes, I think the Chiefs need to satisfy him more by getting him competent weapons, but they're also trying to do that by saying when the draft comes around, hey, Pat, we know, you want to say in this, let's hear your input. And they take his input seriously. Like I said, that's probably going to be it for me on ragging on the wide receivers. We've gone on about that for a while. So to build up the defense, kind of like you were saying, it was
can I read the offensive stats really quickly?
Yeah, hit them.
I'm going to read the offensive stats because in a game where you score 9 points, you got some problems. But Patrick Mahomes was 24 of 38 for 241, averaging 6.3 yards per throw, no touchdown passes to 2 interceptions. The fact that Andy Reid or Matt Nagy had him throw 38 times when he's has the flu, not really sure why they decided to do that, especially in Denver where it snowed earlier today. So, again, a lot of question marks surrounding the decision-making process of the coaching staff. Isaiah Pacheco, 8 carries for 40 yards, averaging 5 yards a carry. Patrick Mahomes had 3 carries for 20 yards. Clyde had 1 for 4. To the receiving stats, Travis Kelce was your leading wide receiver with 6 receptions for 58 yards, his longest being that 19-yard catch. Rashee Rice had 4 catches for 56. Justin Watson had 2 for 42. MVS had 2 for 27. Noah Gray had 2 for 25. Mecole Hardman had 2 for 13. And Jerick McKinnon had 1 for 11 yards. Oh, interesting to note, you know how we talked about Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney being a non-factor? Both of them had 1 catch. Sky Moore had 8 yards. Kadarius Toney had 4 yards.
Yeah, and that's just sadly kind of what's grown to be the usual thing here now, and obviously I hate that's the way that's worked out and that's kind of panned out, but that's just the way it is now. I think when you look at the box scores at this point in the season, that's kind of what I'm expecting every week is to see maybe, a good week for them. I can see like 3 catches for 20 something yards. Like, okay, yeah, we'll take it. Like, that's just unfortunately the position that we've put ourselves in with the wide receiver development. It's just, it sucks. I think there's not much else we can say about it. It's frustrating to watch the wide receiver core go to work and to see these guys who we were hoping would be very, very good for us and had the potential to be very good for us just struggle. And that's a part of football though. So I don't think it's over by any means, any stretch of the measure. I think there's still time for them to work it out a little bit. I'm losing hope very quickly in that, but I do think the offense will be able to figure it out enough to make some kind of run.
I agree. But like you said, let's get to the defense, because while the defense only did give up 24 points and they did have the Chiefs offense giving the Broncos the ball with very good field position, the Chiefs defense struggled to stop the run. And that was a problem in this game because while Russell Wilson was only 12 of 19 for 114, he threw 3 touchdowns actually. Denver had 153 yards on the ground, and combining the 153 yards on the ground with all the turnovers, it was just not a recipe for success. And I think that the Chiefs defense was out there too long today. They got off the field a couple times, but again, I think the defense is not the reason why you lost this game. I'm not blaming the Chiefs defense for why the Chiefs were not victorious, because the Chiefs offense put up 9 points. The Chiefs defense held Denver to a reasonable number, and the offense just couldn't match it.
Yeah, and anybody that tries to place any blame on the defense is just being delusional and trying to cope in a way where they're trying to save Patrick Mahomes, they're trying to save the offense, and I get it to an extent if that's what you want to do. But this defense played about as good as you could have asked them to possibly have played. I mean, like we've said, they had horrible field positioning multiple times. The Chiefs offense set them up for failure, and the defense really didn't break. They had 5 sacks.
Yeah.
And you put up 9 points. 5 sacks.
Oh, they had 6 sacks, actually.
6. And so, it's just, it is frustrating. And I mean, there's not much else you can say about the defense because they've been good as I've considered them all year. I mean, there wasn't really a glaring hole. I think there were some things obviously you could pick up, open field tackling a little bit. I think giving guys some extra yards when we probably shouldn't be. But at the end of the day, they held them to a point where the Chiefs offense had chances to win this football game and they didn't do it. And instead, they actually gave the defense an even worse position in the game to have a chance to go out there and make an impact, and they set them up for failure.
I'll tell you what, I'll give a shout out to George Karlaftis. He had 2.5 sacks in this game.
Karlaftis, man.
The front four was really good. The Chiefs got great pressure, 6 sacks against Russell Wilson. You can't ask them to do any better. And I don't want to give credit to Russell Wilson, but for a guy that got sacked as much as he did, you got to give him some credit for holding in and, sticking up in the pocket and delivering those 3 touchdown passes. And he led the Broncos to victory. And while I'm not happy about it, I have an amount of respect for that because it's not easy. And I do think that they were the better team today. And that's tough to say, but when the Chiefs offense is that bad for a 60-minute football game, You can't say anything else. They just outperformed us.
And I think there's so many root things I think that make you think about this. And I feel like whenever the Chiefs have a game like this, we kind of overanalyze it compared to other teams because of how good we are. And as we probably should, because this has become a franchise in the last 5 years that is the best in the NFL. Like over the last 5-year period, we've been the best team in the NFL. I mean, that's just what it is. So we're held to a different standard now. And I think you have to look at the coaching, you have to look at the players, obviously, and you have to look at the management too. And kind of like we've alluded to, I think a lot of the early draft picks have been questionable. And I want to take that, like, I don't want to make it sound like I am just trashing Brett Veach for this, because I think Brett Veach is a great drafting general manager in general. I think you can look at the draft class granted, obviously he missed on Sky Moore, but that draft class with George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, all these guys that he got, they're huge. But I do think we have a pattern. He's not good at drafting offensive talents in the first round, and he's missed a lot of these guys. And you can chalk it up to, that's just the way the draft goes. But you chose Clyde, like somebody in the comment section said earlier, we chose Clyde over Jonathan Taylor. We chose Mecole Hardman over DK Metcalf, and we chose Sky Moore over George Pickens, which all three of which I'd like to point out, Clyde is probably the least at the time. But all those three of those picks, you really could have questioned at the draft pick over those other guys. You really could have said, I understand Tyreek Hill's situation had an effect on drafting Mecole Hardman and things like that. But it's just, there's certain things there where it becomes like there's reasons like, why did you not take these guys? And they were questionable at the time, and they're even questionable now. I think Sky Moore over Pickens was kind of weird. And I think not taking DK over Mecole was weird at the time too. But here we are. We have to deal with the cards that have been dealt. That's just the way football goes. And at the end of the day, we have, in my opinion, the best head coach in football, the best quarterback in football. The D-line is playing like one of the best D-lines in football. But I think to me, it all kind of goes back to drafting the talent. And I'm just not sure that we've been able to. And I think this year kind of showed it too, not to keep rambling, but like Felix and Aduke Uzama, I don't mean to rag on the kid. He's not playing. Like, I understand this front four is really good. But if he's not playing at all and he's a first-round draft pick, that's worrisome to me, like a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you should be seeing some snaps, and he's just not.
Yeah. No, I definitely see the concern. I kind of want to talk about how I think this game is something you have to look at and, obviously learn from your mistakes. But I'm not really worried. Like, I think that they always have these games where they legitimately look like a horrible football team and they find a way to turn it around. And I know that the wide receivers are bad now. Inconsistent is probably the best word to describe them. But last year, with this essentially same wide receiver core minus Juju Smith-Schuster, they were good enough to win the Super Bowl. So there's just some other stuff going on. And this year, your defense is 100 times better than it was last year. So again, until the Chiefs played this game, there was an argument that they were the best team in football. Them losing this game doesn't take them out of that argument completely. Obviously, it's a little bit worrisome, but the Chiefs are still a good football team. They will figure it out. I think that the reason why Chiefs fans specifically are so maybe upset is because the same problems we've been talking about for the last 7 weeks finally reared their ugly head, and you lost a game that, quite frankly, you should not have lost. You were a better team than the Denver Broncos in essentially every way. But it was bound to happen eventually. The Denver Broncos had about 7 or 8 years of pent-up frustration, and they were going to take it out on the Chiefs eventually, and it's what happened today. And even coming into this game, based on how the Chiefs played the Broncos in that first game, it was going to be close. I just had that weird feeling that since it's a divisional game, it's cold and snowy in Denver, I just had a feeling that it was going to be really tough for the Chiefs to go in there and win. And if they did win, it was going to be an ugly score like that 17-9 or a really disgusting game. And it was a gross game for the Chiefs, but they just were not able to get the win.
Yeah, I just think that, and I agree with you, your point about the best team in football argument. We're still there. It's unrealistic if you think we're not. I mean, the Niners, I don't know the outcome to their game. I don't know if they wound up winning or losing to the Bengals just because they wound up losing. So the Niners, have dropped some games in a row, and this is football. This year, I think more than other years in the past, it seems like it's a little bit more of a level playing ground, I would say. I feel like there's always been kind of one team that's been defined, and I think the Eagles are probably still that team again this year that are the team to beat. But we're still in the mix, same as these other guys. I think this game sucks. It's a bump in the road, but our view on the Chiefs season as a whole shouldn't be completely changed because of one game in Week 8.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The Chiefs will be okay. I know this loss hurts Chiefs fans. I know that some of you are worried that the sky is falling, but the Chiefs will figure it out. Patrick Mahomes will get healthy, hopefully get over this flu bug. And Andy Reid's going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how he can get this offense to performing at a more consistent level. So, again, one last time, the Denver Broncos finally took down the Kansas City Chiefs by a final score of 24-9. Yet again, beating them for the first time since Barack Obama was president and the Royals had not won the World Series. So congrats on that. But until next time, guys, thank you for watching this Kansas City Chiefs post-game show presented by Bleacher Report.